If the SIU finds evidence of a criminal offense that has been committed, it is obliged and will be obliged to refer such evidence to the prosecuting authority. It is also empowered to institute civil proceedings for the recovery of any damages or losses incurred by the state.
Hello and welcome to Unfiltered on SABC3 and the SABC News channel on DSTV channel 404. I'm Peter Ndoro, standing in for Aldrin Sampear this week. Now, Eskom is trying to recover about 3.8 billion rand in funds illegally diverted from the state utility to help the controversial Gupta family. South Africans have long been frustrated by the lack of accountability, especially in state-owned enterprises where billions have been plundered over the years. Summonses have been issued to 9 former executives and board members of the state-owned utility. Eskom alleges that former executives and board members breached their fiduciary duty of care and good faith by jointly arranging a state capture effort with the Gupta brothers. Former Minister Mosebenzi Zwane and Salim Essa to illegally divert funds from Eskom. Well, tonight we ask, is there any prospect of success in Eskom's effort to recover money looted from its coffers? Please, you can engage with us on social media using our hashtag at SABC News and also at SABC News Unfiltered and Unfiltered. So let's welcome our guests this evening who are going to help us unpack this story. We're joined by Sikonati Manchancha, who's the spokesperson for Eskom. Thanks very much indeed for joining us and welcome. We also have the Executive Director for Accountability at the Organisation for Undoing Tax Abuse, OUTA, Advocate Stephanie Fick, who's on the line. Thanks very much indeed for joining us. And we also have the spokesperson for the Special Investigating Unit, the SIU, Mr. Kaiser Khanyako. To you, a very good evening as well. Okay, let's begin with Eskom and Sikonati Manchancha, who, as a journalist, was covering this story for a long, long time. So in many ways, you had an idea where the bodies were buried. Now you've got keys to those hidden places. Tell us about, in fact, give us a background to how we got to this point that the SIU came in to try and recover all these billions that have been stolen.
Thank you, Peter. The first thing we need to tell the people of South Africa is indeed that this is a civil claim to recover the losses, the money that has been filtered out of Eskom by these 12 defendants, as opposed to a criminal prosecution. Eskom, over the past 2.5 years, has laid dozens of criminal charges with the police, and we await action there with the National Prosecuting Authority. But Eskom does not have the luxury of not doing nothing. We have to go out and recover the monies, and at this point, this is just one particular transaction where the Gupta through Tegeta acquired Optimum Coal Holdings, which supplied coal to the Hendrina power station. The amount that we have arrived at is 3.8 billion rand, this being 2.4 billion rand that was awarded or forwarded to the company by Eskom's executives in order to help them illegally to buy the company, and even there were guarantees and stuff like that, which Eskom knows money has to be recovered and the people of South Africa have to be compensated. We are, Peter, under no illusion that we will recover the full 4 billion rand, but let's repeat this again. We do not have the luxury of not doing nothing.
All right, so we'll speak to the SIU just now, but are you hopeful that you'll recover some of this, if not all of this money?
Peter, I can assure you that we will recover a lot more than we will spend in legal costs to get the money. it might very well be that Eskom will end up owning some properties that belong to some of these former executives and indeed members of the Gupta family. This is a transaction that happened in 2015 all the way to 2016. Now we are aware that quite some time has elapsed since, but we will indeed recover a lot more than we will spend on pursuing the individuals. We cannot mislead people, though, in believing that we will cover the full 4 billion rand. The reality is that it cannot necessarily be that full 4 billion rand plus the cost and interest.
All right. Okay. Let's come to the SIU, Mr. Kganyako. And I guess the question must be then, and perhaps you can help the public understand your role in this. Often people think as a special investigating unit that you're part of the police, but that's not quite your role. Take us into how you ended up being part of investigating what's happening in Eskom and also part of trying to recover these funds.
Thank you very much, Peter. I think I should start by saying that we are, as the SIU, created by an act of parliament, and what we then are expected to do is to investigate state-owned institutions and state institutions in general, be it municipalities, provincial government, national government, and the state-owned institutions like Eskom. In this particular instance, we were given, there were allegations that were put together, and through those allegations, we then went and asked for a proclamation. And the proclamation is Proclamation R11 of 2018, where we are looking at investigating various contracts that were entered into in Eskom. And this is one of those. People will remember, for example, we did the Tegeta one, which we took to court, and the court agreed with us and we set it aside. And now we say we were able to save the money that Eskom was supposed to be paying. And then in this particular instance, as part of our investigations that are ongoing, but not everything, the others are the Medupi power stations and so on, and the issue of the fuel or the diesel that was used or bought. And in this particular one, we are working with Eskom to make sure that with the evidence that we have found since we started the investigation in 2018, we are now in a position to say, this is what we have found. And we are now together with Eskom going out there to say, we want to recover this money. Because one of the things that we do as the SIU, which is a part of the outcomes that we have got end-to-end control over, is this particular one where we are able to approach the courts, set the contract aside, and recover the money. The other two of the outcomes, we don't have end-to-end control, which is prosecution. When we find criminality, we then send it to the prosecuting authority, which is the NPA. And then when we find that there's disciplinary hearings that needs to happen against certain employees who are still employed, in this particular instance will be Eskom. We send that to Eskom for them to discipline those people. We then avail our investigators as witnesses in those DCs.
All right. And then just before we go to the break, if I can come to you, Advocate Stephanie Fick. As outer, I'm sure you must be thrilled to see some action being taken finally against some of these names that have been popping up for a number of years now. And the public have been wondering, when will there be accountability? Is this the first step in the right direction?
Oh, yes, indeed. I think that I can agree with you. I think not only Alpha and all its supporters, but I think South Africa, I think there is a glimmer of hope. But we can't stop here. I think we also call on all other SOEs to follow in the footsteps of the SIU and Eskom in this particular matter. And we look forward to seeing, other directors of the SOEs being, held accountable for something we must remember, has started, years back. I think we sort of realized, stat capture was happening in 2016, 2017, but I think some of these incidents happened, even before that. So we must keep in mind that, cases don't get better. They tend to get worse as time goes on. So I can just reiterate what we've said before, is that we hope, although this is a glimmer of hope, hopefully some of these individuals will also be prosecuted, and that we will see other SOEs follow in the footsteps.
All right, okay. We'll be chatting some more with our guests, and don't forget you can also be part of this conversation via our social media. Please share your thoughts with us, and let's see what we can unpack in terms of this first action that we're seeing against executives and businesses that were finding money in their pockets at the expense of Eskom and the taxpayer. We'll be back right after this.
Nothing could have prepared us. No one thought what was happening could be true. We didn't realize how much we'd miss each other. Everyone said nothing will be the same. But nothing feels the same either. You're stronger than you know. You've changed. We all have. Your time is now, and together we will get through this.
Make your future count. Leave a legacy. Start today. Demlin Online.
On Trends Travel, we are all about levels, starting up with level 5.
And the whole world went inside and shut their doors. And no one act by people as a whole has felt more like love than this.
This has become our lives. Gloves, masks and hand sanitizers. But it doesn't mean your mask has to be boring.
The Fashion Forward Level 4.
Winter 2021. We're going to be chatting to David Lally to find out more about his latest collection. Darling.
The Out and About Level 3. Whether it's hiking, a self-drive.
This one is one of the tamed giraffes. It actually likes people. We miss it too.
Or just cycling.
That's it. It's a wrap.
You will get it right here on your home of adventure.
To ensure that action is taken speedily, I will be getting interim reports on investigations every 6 weeks. The consequences for those who break the law or bypass regulations will be very, very severe. The people of South Africa require nothing less than full accountability from those who've been elected and appointed to serve them.
All right, so that's the president who's been saying that those who break the law will meet the full might of the law. Let's go back to our guests, and we start again with Eskom and Sikonathi. Sikonathi, from what you've been able to gather, because we've seen a new team come in over time, is there a lot of evidence of much more than this transaction that's problematic, that has been problematic at Eskom?
Peter, that's a great question. Thank you. Eskom has repeatedly said, starting particularly earlier this year, that we will review every major contract, and where we find evidence of any corruption and all other sort of wrongdoing, we will not hesitate to cancel that contract, and we will pursue the individuals behind it, both criminally and in a civil suit, as Eskom is doing in this particular one. So this is just the first of many. We have had quite a few successes in the recent past, starting with that 1.1 billion rand that we recovered from McKinsey just about 2 years ago, and Eskom indeed has recovered some money from Deloitte, again in deals that had to be cancelled and reversed. We are pursuing other companies, including at this point PwC, whom we have issued summons against to recover 95 million rands. There is a whole lot more coming, Peter, and the people of South Africa need to be aware that Eskom will not just sit back and do nothing. There's a whole lot of corruption that did take place and deals that should not have happened. And this is just the start, one of many to come.
I would imagine that there are a lot of employees at Eskom who saw a lot of these things happening over time. Have they been feeling free to come forward? Because in my experience, when you work in a climate of fear for a long, long time, it takes quite a bit to come out and start to tell your truth.
Absolutely right, Peter. Mr. Khanyago here will attest to the work that the SIU is doing inside Eskom. I can add that we have a team from the Zondo Commission of Inquiry, which is at Eskom, about 9 people that are working full-time there to gather evidence in order to forward to the Commission alongside the SIU. Yes, you have a lot of people coming forward telling what they know, but also you have a lot of people that willingly participated in this corruption, and they do what they can to avoid being detected, and indeed to avoid having that the evidence of their wrongdoing or their partner's wrongdoing coming forward. So there is still indeed a culture of fear. This is a situation that carried on well over 10 years at least, where people were getting illegal instructions from the very people that were trusted, were put in positions of trust to look after the best interests of the company. Yet they were giving illegal instructions, firing and dismissing people and suspending those who stand in the way of corruption. So there is still a lot of work being done in order to regain the trust of management itself. Before you go down to employees, it's not smooth, but we are getting a lot done. As you will see in the next few weeks, you have already seen in the past few weeks that there are 2 or 3 contracts that have been cancelled, or Eskom has announced it's taking steps to cancel. These are the newer contracts, but there's much older contracts that still need to be done away with.
All right, okay, let's chat to Mr. Khanyago. We've just heard from Mr. Manchansha that we had, there were cases going back many years, almost a decade, problems at Eskom. So the public are wondering, what's the SIU been doing for the last 10 years?
Like I said, Peter, we work on a basis of allegations that came to us. Like in this particular instance, most of the investigations that we are doing at Eskom are under Proclamation R11 of 2018, which means we started working on them in 2018, and it's only 2 years between then and now. And we have already shown a lot of results around these matters. And we are saying to the public of South Africa, watch this space. You're going to see a lot of other issues that are coming out of these investigations that we are doing. But the one other thing that I need to emphasize is the fact that this particular case is a clear example of saying people must know when they have got fiduciary responsibility, they must do what they are supposed to do. Because for many years, we have had a situation where when people do make decisions in boards, they then resign when they have done something wrong, and then that will be the end of it. But now, this particular case is trying to say, when you have got responsibility given to you as board members and you take decisions as board members, you will be held accountable for those decisions. And people must then think twice when they have got to accept their being board members of state-owned institutions.
Take us into your confidence. Has the SIU been independent, or is it recent? In fact, I'm going to give you a break to think about your answer. When we come back, I'll come to you for that answer. Okay, we're going to take a quick break, and after that, we'll find out if there's changes at the SIU that's seeing this new energy coming through.
It swept through our lives and everything changed. We felt such a sense of loss. But with them, we feel hope. We honor the people that shine light again, the people that keep us safe, the people that take care of our children. They will do what they have always done, protect and serve on the front lines. Many of them have come through our doors. We are proud of each and every one. Lyceum, heroes of tomorrow.
Firstly, CM agreed that only grade 6 and 11 will return, and provinces that are ready and institutions that are ready will then also phase in the ECD programs.
Why the rush to get back now at this time in the middle of a peak?
And I'm saying their response confirms the correctness of the fact that parents and learners want to go to school.
We're not happy at all because we got a challenge with the PPE.
There was no need for us to rush for the reopening of the schools.
By opening or reopening of the schools, we are actually giving the virus a chance. That's why we are saying to whoever is the decision makers to review the decision.
We need to think very differently about how we are going to embrace what is left of 2020.
Most of the parts of the country have pretty much reached the peak point. The containment measures being implemented are assisting. However, we must not be complacent. If we don't insist on the mask, the sanitizers, the washing of hands, distancing, we actually can have a second surge.
With the country's high COVID-19 infection rate, health conditions in prisons are under the spotlight.
As a result of the overcrowding, these inmates are prone to get infected.
We actually have been able to contain the pandemic quite well in these facilities.
We're sitting with a huge problem, and every day these people are dying. It's a grave humiliation to the human rights of the inmates.
Parole is a privilege. These are people who have committed murder, rape, very serious crimes in our communities. And ideally, you don't want such people being let out willy-nilly without a very due process.
Welcome back. You're watching Unfiltered, and as we started this program, there was a question that we asked you. We said, is there any prospect of success, do you think, in terms of Eskom's efforts to try and recover monies that were diverted illegally from Eskom's coffers? And you've been tweeting us and sharing your thoughts with us at SABC News, at SABC News Unfiltered. And this is what some of you have had to say. Let's take a look. Ridewell says, a commendable effort, if admissible and within the prescripts of the law. I don't see any reason for this to fail. And the next message comes from, it's coming, Extension Twit says, slim chances that the money will be recovered. The South African law allows for delays when it comes to justice in white-collar crimes. And Azanian People says the current COO is also implicated in corrupt activities. And it's funny how the media has kept quiet. No mention of corruption that is currently taking place as we speak. All right, we'll get a response on that from Sukunati just now. But just before the break, I asked Mr. Kganyako about the SIU. He says that they've been working hard since 2018. And I wonder if it's coincidental that that's almost the same time as a change in administration in the country. Mr. Kganyako.
That's not the case. I was just referring to the issue of Eskom to say it was under proclamation R11 of 2018. But the SIU has always been independent and has always done a lot of work. I'll just give you a simple example. We only hear about the issues of Bosasa, for example, now. But as far back as 2009, we did the investigation and we gave a report in 2009 that were saying all the things that were recently now heard by other people through the Zondo Commission. But as far as we are concerned, we've always been independent and will always be independent because where we are driven by integrity, but we are also driven by evidence. Whatever put forward has got evidence attached to it. Even in this particular case of Eskom, we are clear that the evidence that we have found is good enough for us to go after the people that we are going after.
All right, okay. Let's ask Advocate Stephanie Fick the difference between a civil and a criminal case, because this is a civil case, isn't it? And my understanding is that the burden of proof is slightly different to the one required, for example, by the National Prosecuting Authority, and that perhaps might be a good thing for the recovery process of these monies.
That's correct. Obviously, I think everyone will understand that if you look at a criminal prosecution, someone faces, and some of these crimes will probably face, more than 15 years. You've got maximum sentences that will apply depending on what you prosecute someone for. And in a civil matter, it's more about, getting the money back. So if you prosecute someone, that person will... hopefully, the sanction is going to jail, take away your freedom, and in a civil case, it's obviously, going after the money. So you can understand why the burden of proof is a little bit different. I always say that I think we have a wonderful system, and I think everyone will agree with me, although we want the criminals behind bars. The fact that that the state has to prove a case beyond reasonable doubt, make you sort of sleep at night, because it means that, we have to go to trial, there has to be evidence, and then if the state can prove that you are guilty of a crime, then obviously we want you behind bars. And that's what we want in these cases. I think we've heard enough. The State Capture Commission was quite clear as to all the shenanigans and crimes that happen.
Okay, we're going to carry on with this discussion just now, but at this point, this is where we say good night to our viewers on SABC3. Thanks very much indeed for tuning in and catching this week's edition of Unfiltered. If you're watching on the SABC News channel, and if you want to carry on watching, then switch over to the SABC News channel, channel 404 on DSTV. But to our SABC3 viewers, good night. All right, we continue with our conversation, and we're chatting to Advocate Stephanie Fick just before we said goodbye to SABC3. And Advocate, I've just heard from Mr. Kganyako about the SIU and the work that it's been doing. Are you satisfied that the SIU has done enough over the years? It does seem that there's a new energy there.
Which is a good thing. I think that is part of the hope that we were talking about, that, everything, the plan is coming together, and that, with the SIU, who's got a very important role to fulfill, and then obviously we will look towards the NPA to also do their part. I think as civil society, we do understand that, these processes do not just happen. You don't go to court with the 3-something billion rand claim without doing some investigation. What I can say is I do think that what we've seen is resources. And the guests can maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that they can do with more resources. And I think more people, more good people that can do their job and go forward with these cases. And that I think that is what we saw with the NPA, with the Hawks, and with very important units like the SIU. I think that, the resources that is supposed to go their way doesn't always go there. So, if I have to be critical, and one doesn't have to be critical, as I do think more could have been done. But was enough done with the amount of people and the amount of cooperation that was given from SOEs? Like was said, can they go after cases at Transnet, for example, if Transnet doesn't work with them? So there's a lot of factors one has to take into account. And I think for most part, that the people, the hard-working people at the SIU did what they could. But in general, objectively, could we have done more? I do think from civil society, we tend to say yes. We want, more people held to accountable. We wanted the money back in South Africans' coffers already by this time. But on the other hand, it is good news. And again, we say that hopefully some of the other SOUs will cooperate with units like the SIU and get the evidence together so that we can go after the money. We need the money. Our economy is not doing great, and state capture hasn't done us any favors. So, yes.
All right. So, Mr. Mantshantsha, there was an accusation that was made just before the break, something about the COO involved in corruption, and we don't want to slander the man, so can you address that?
Peter, thank you so much. That's a great question. The Jan Oberholzer, the first thing I must assure the people of South Africa, anyone who has any evidence of wrongdoing against Jan Oberholzer, against Andre de Ruyter, against any member of the board, against any member of the management team and anybody at Eskom, please take it to the relevant authorities and lay a charge, 1. 2, bring it to the attention of Eskom, I'm talking about evidence, and let that be prosecuted. There are absolutely no holy cows, including Jan Oberholzer. Now, let's go back to his matter. When Jan Oberholzer was recruited, headhunted by Eskom in 2018, the board at the time that headhunted him looked at his CV, which showed that he worked for a company called Stefanotis Stocks in the 10 years that he had left Eskom. He had left Eskom in December 2008, and in 2018 he was headhunted to come back. He showed his CV, and when he joined Eskom, he declared an interest in 33,000 shares that were worth 120,000 that he had received when he worked for Stefanotis Stocks. He declared this in July 2018 when he joined. He declared this again this year, as he does every year. And the Eskom's board said, okay, we see this, there's no conflict. At this point in January 2020, Peter, the shares were worth 6,000 rands. Let's give you the context. Jan Oberholzer got paid 4.4 million rand. Management accepted that he's got shares there, and they said there is no conflict, go work. What did happen is that Stefanotis Stock had a contract with Eskom that was awarded while Jan was away, and he went and resolved the matter. When the allegation came from a person who works at Eskom and was working with Jan Oberholzer, and they were having personal issues about performance, and Jan was the boss, allegations were leveled against him. Eskom hired an independent lawyer from outside, Advocate Mkwane, to investigate the allegations leveled against Jan Oberholzer. Amongst those allegations were that he was conflicted in his dealings with Stefanotis Stocks and other issues. Advocate Mkwane went and investigated and interviewed everybody that he wanted to. As the terms of reference said, you can interview anyone, including the person that had made the allegation. The finding was that there's absolutely nothing to worry about here. Please move on. There were indeed personal issues between the two, which Advocate Mkwane resolved or made an attempt to resolve, including moving the particular individual from that unit where Jan Oberholzer worked. New allegations were leveled against Jan this year. Eskom did exactly the same. It went and hired Advocate Nazir Kasim and said, please look at these allegations. This is the board. Advise us what to do. Advocate Nazir Kasim looked at the allegations and came to the conclusion that there was no conflict on the part of Jan and there was no corruption. He used the words baseless. Amongst the complaints was that Jan had favored a company called Avenge. He insisted the company be paid, while the people in that department were saying, no, we are not paying that. And Avenge took the matter to court. The matter is pending judgment. Advocate Nasir Kasim said, we recommend that Jan Oberholzer be disciplined for insisting this company be paid. However, the matter is before the court and judgment is pending. Therefore, once that matter has been resolved, Eskom will have to take action against. There's now two people: the one who refused to pay a contractor, or the one who insisted a contractor be paid. When the court finds, when the court makes a judgment, Eskom will then look and see who must be disciplined, either for insisting a company should be paid when it should not, or for refusing to pay a contractor that has done that. There's absolutely no evidence at this point that has been presented against Jan Oberholzer. Two independent lawyers came to the same conclusion. The one matter that's outstanding is judgment on whether Ivenge is owed by Eskom 42 million rand, which Jan was of the opinion that it does, and his colleagues said no.
Okay, all right, we'll watch that with interest. Mr. Kganyago, some of the people that are on this list are not in the country. Will you still be able to go after them? And has everybody been served a notice, a summons? I'm not sure how it works in a civil matter such as this.
Yeah, maybe let me start with that one. When we issued the papers, we were then in a position to ask the sheriff to now go and serve all the people that need to be served. And we're hopeful that by now everybody has been served, because if you remember, some of the people were on public platforms saying that they don't know anything about this, we should have given them a warning. But I was saying at the time, that's not how things work. We issue the summons in court, and then at that point, they will then be served. And in as far as the people that are out of the country, obviously, this is a matter that we'll have to look into in relation to the issue of mutual assistance that we always have with other countries that are there. If you remember, sometime in December, the head of the SIU together with the minister and the head of the NPA were in the UAE, where they were, among other things, looking at issues of mutual legal assistance. And those are the things that we need to do. We cannot say because the people are not in the country, when we've got evidence that they've done something wrong, and say we cannot go after them. It is important for us to go after them wherever they are and get whatever legal assistance that we need from that country and deal with them as and how and when we have to deal with them, in the same way as we will treat those that are within the country.
Do we know how long this process is going to take? Because sometimes court cases take an age to even sit and then get ventilated.
Yeah, the unfortunate part is that once we have issued the papers, all that we can do is to work with the courts and make sure that we try and find a time that is really quicker. But you must also understand that the courts are not only dealing with this matter, they are dealing with many other matters. They will have to then do case management around these issues and make sure that all the people are served, all the people are given enough time to respond before the cases can start.
All right, Advocate Fick, I keep asking you the legal questions. What does one do when somebody is not present to receive a summons or be served?
Well, you can it depends on the facts. If the person is not in the, you just need to serve the paper so that someone knows to be in court. Now, I'd say with civil procedure, it is easier in the sense that if you go watch the civil process unfold, you appoint an attorney, and normally you don't have to, but normally in these instances you'll appoint an attorney, and clients normally do not go to court. So it's not like in a criminal case where you need to arrest someone and you probably need mutual legal assistance to get some papers and all of that, because you need an accused in a court of law, where with civil matters, they must, as long as they know about the summons, they must just indicate whether they are opposed to it, whether they are going to file their papers against whatever is alleged. Or, if they don't answer, then, certain other steps can be taken. So it's about them knowing about this matter. Now, really depending on, like I've said, on the facts, you can, the lawyers and maybe Eskom and SIU can be more specific for the listeners, because they know what is the facts, who did they get hold of and who not. And it really is just about them knowing. So if they know about this, they must either come and oppose, or Eskom and SIU can go after the money on behalf of South Africans.
All right, so what happens if these people put their hands up and and claim poverty, that we don't have money, sorry, we can't help?
I think I would take that with a pinch of salt in many instances. If you have an order, there is, in other words, the court has found that you do owe someone amount of money, in this instance, Eskom. Go do a search on whether they don't possess properties. If properties may be exchanged hands, recently and all of that, is really to go after not only the cash, but in some instances, property. And do you have shares? And in certain circumstances, one can go after those things. So again, it unfortunately depends on the facts, but I do not believe that the people that were involved can now claim poverty. I am sure that, if Eskom and the SIU is successful, they will be able to at least go after some of the money. Or in fact, in reality, practically go after some of the money.
All right, so we're going to take another quick break, and when we come back, we'll continue to unpack this story. And I'm curious if some people are more guilty than others, if there is such a thing. We'll find out after this.
De Doorns was een rustige area toen ik nog een kind was. Mannen wat saam met my gehoord geraak het in dwelms verval. Ek is na in buis, ek het die pad gekies wat vir my veiliger is en dis om rugby te speel. Ek speel hier vir die local club, de Doorns United. SABC het my lewe baie verander as kind. Hoe meer rugby gekyk het op TV, hoe beter het ek geword. So dit my geleer wat 'n mens ek moet wees. Deur SABC 2 wat dit moontlik gemaak het.
Life doesn't come with an instruction manual. Write your own rules. It's a big world out there. Go explore. Wherever you're going, make an entrance. Yeah, that's it. And don't waste a single day. Because you could be inspiring someone. Put in the work. The hard work, the hustle, the grind. It's tough out there, but you're tougher. Now we're talking. Make your own fun. Share the journey. And never forget who you are and why you live the Ranger life.
In the trenches of business, don't lose sight of the bigger picture. With Nedbank systems integration and electronic banking solutions, you can minimize risk, increase efficiencies, and stay on top of your cash flow. To guide your growth, search Nedbank Bigger Picture Business Banking.
Welcome back. You're watching Unfiltered on the SABC News channel, and today we focused on the 3.8 billion rand that Eskom and the SIU are trying to recover on behalf of taxpayers, being monies that were diverted illegally by certain individuals, including private businessmen, as well as politicians, as well as board members. And we asked you what you think the prospects of success are for Eskom in trying to recover this money that was looted from its coffers. And this is some of the responses that you've had. Let's go to Witness Ruimfontein, who says, we might recover some of the amounts. It would have been good if these processes were started much earlier. The whole system that triggers investigations should also be reviewed, because if the president does not see merit in a case, the matter might not get the attention that it deserves. Mlisa says, I'm wondering how this is going to happen, because Kaiser, we do remember that some of your preservation orders which you obtained through the state of capture narrative were dismissed at a particular stage. You people are just spin doctoring us. Oh. Okay, well, let's ask Mr. Kganyako. Are you just spin doctoring us, Mr. Kganyako?
Definitely not. The things that I'm talking about, Peter, are things that are out there. I think the person there is talking about preservation orders. Preservation orders are orders that we give, for example, when the one that we did now with the Northwest head of the Department of Health, where we're saying, because we're investigating you on issues and we think we are getting evidence that might lead us to recovering something from you, and you have now left the department, we need to then get that your pensions being preserved for us until we are done with the investigation. We have done that with the head of the State Attorney's Office in Johannesburg. Those are temporary until we are done with the investigation. Therefore, if there's something that we need to recover, we then go and recover. Therefore, I don't know what is being doctored, because most of those things go into an open court and we then give reasons and they are adjudicated over by a judge who give us on the basis of the reasons that we are given.
Mr. Mantshantsha, there are many people who say the Gupta family in particular have not been found guilty of anything. And in fact, any time that they've been to court so far, they've been fairly successful. So it begs the question, is there enough evidence from what you've seen, especially looking at your own books, that they are complicit, culpable in any way?
Peter, thank you for the question. The first thing I wish to correct, you keep using the word monies that were illegally transferred to these people.
Yeah.
Let's be frank here and tell the people of South Africa that this 3.8 billion rand we are talking about was stolen from Eskom for the benefit of a particular family and a group of people. The fact you are now asking whether there is enough evidence for convictions. The fact that nobody has been convicted, not only in this case, but in the others that we will bring before the courts and in the many that will possibly never be brought, is not for lack of evidence. It's because nobody has just been arrested. The law enforcement agencies, we are still hopeful that indeed they will act and arrest people. The evidence that Eskom has taken to court now is, as you know, Peter, in my previous life, and everybody in South Africa knows now, has been in the public domain for at least 5 years. Eskom is using exactly that kind of information that people in the media went out and said, this person did X, Y, Z, and here's the evidence. Amongst the journalists in South Africa, I'm not aware of a single one in jail for labeling anyone, accusing them of theft. Yet the police have not, we have not seen any arrest in that. Eskom is absolutely confident of the evidence it has, working with the Special Investigating Unit, that we will see not only costs awarded against these people, but also convictions when prosecutions finally do occur.
And everyone on that list is culpable in some way.
Even the person who may have stolen a rand is culpable. Everybody that is on that list, and Eskom reserves the right to add more people. You know, Peter, I can rattle names and quickly escalate that list to over 24 people, just as a start, those at the top. So Eskom has specifically stated that it reserves the right to add more names there. You know the names yourselves. There's quite a lot of people that should be added there. People that were directors at Eskom starting all the way in 2013, coming this way. People who were in government, people who were in parliament. There's a lot of people that need to be accountable. And Eskom needs to recover every cent in order to relieve the pressure on
We're running out of time, so I'm going to interrupt you and just give a last word to Stephanie, just in 30 seconds, a closing thought on this whole saga. Advocate Stephanie Fick.
Thank you so much. I think South Africa has got a glimmer of hope that one of the SOEs decided to go after the money. It is a bit late, like your guest has said, that the evidence has been out there for some instances. So let's take the hope. Let's use that, and it's positive news. But for all the other SOEs and for all the law enforcement agencies, please, 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 let's start and get all the people that were responsible. Let's hold all of them to account.
Many thanks to Advocate Stephanie Fick, Executive Director for Accountability at OUTA, Kaiser Khanyago, spokesperson for the Special Investigating Unit, and Sikonati Manchancha, spokesperson for Eskom. Thank you very, very much indeed, and we wish you the very best of luck in recovering our money. All right, that's Unfiltered for tonight. Thanks very much indeed for joining us. Join us again next week at the same time, and Aldrin, I'm sure, will be back then. Take care.